Society wants women to hold the emotional labor and give and always be liked and, all those things. And suddenly I'm like, you know what? I just want to be authentically myself. That's it. And I'm going to hold boundaries around that. And suddenly it almost is like an impossibility for me to do otherwise.
Welcome back to SmarterWellth. This is the podcast where we talk about real life. We talk about real change and how to navigate it all without losing our minds. Hey friends, welcome back to the SmarterWellth podcast. This is where we talk about cultivating balance. We also talk about purpose and how to find a sense of wellness in this journey that we are all on together. In today's world, we also always find ourselves on. It's noisy and it's digital. And so that's actually why I am so excited to talk to our guest today, Amie Rafter. And she brings a little bit of calm to all of this digital space and a little bit of understanding in a very uncertain digital world. And I had the pleasure of meeting Amie first at a conference, the Professional Women in Healthcare. And we met and then learned later that she was a speaker that I had signed up for on AI. And during that breakout session, it blew my mind what I learned. And since then, I knew I had to have more. So I signed up for one of her AI courses, which I also have learned a ton from. So this is a super exciting conversation about how we can lean into AI, but we can also reclaim some of our time and energy and a little bit of that humanity within this digital space. So with that, let's dive in. Amie, so excited to have you on the podcast.
I'm so happy to talk with you, Jill. It's always great to have a conversation with you, and I'm glad we get to record it this time.
Yeah, exactly right. So just to give our audience a little bit of background on you and where you came from and how you even got into this AI space, it's a really cool story. Why don't you share it?
Yeah, thank you. It's been a very non-traditional path. So I am not a technologist by training. I have a business degree and an MBA, and just like many in our generation, I went to college and I got a corporate job and I was in sales. I sold wine, I sold pharmaceuticals. I got into tech on the sales side back before AI was the thing. And then I had a medical device career for 15 years in sales leadership. And then I pivoted back in 2019. So somewhere along the way, my true passion is supporting people. And I love building teams. And I have a knack for figuring out what motivates people and what really guides their values and success, which made me a successful sales leader that said I wanted to serve something a little different with it. I kind of started looking at the world and where we were breaking down. And that really aligned with me becoming a mother. As it does for many. It's a huge pivot, right? So
Sure.
I also went through a divorce. So these two inflection points led me to start asking a lot of different questions about the way the world worked, the way that I wasn't personally supported in my career, the way that, having daughters, was going to be impacted moving forward. And I suddenly made a decision that whatever I wanted to do for work was going to be serving my children's future, not taking from it, meaning being in a high profile corporate job where I was traveling all the time and outsourcing my parenting seemed antithetical to that. So that was the goal. And so I went into building a nonprofit, which was much of a meta experience about systems thinking. And that's where I first got exposed deeply to the AI conversation. So while I was there, the Social Dilemma documentary came out. And if your viewers haven't seen it, it's a must watch. It opened my eyes to something. I always had some hesitance about social media. I was never personally comfortable with it. Maybe it's my age. That said, that really unlocked something for me about something deeper that was happening and how our society's motivation towards profit over health and well-being was at the forefront. And it kind of freaked me out. So I dove deeper and I ended up reading an amazing book I also recommend called The Chaos Machine by Max Fisher. He was on the Rich Roll podcast. It's a really good podcast if you don't want to digest the whole book. That said, again, it will blow your mind what you learn about these platforms. And from there, within the nonprofit, I got way exposed when generative AI was launched into understanding the potentials there, the risks, the ethics dynamics. I was involved in a summit there. And I met some truly amazing, talented people in the space. So I sort of by osmosis have absorbed a lot, and I just began to learn to use it at the same time. And then I took a course. And so back in the fall, I actually launched into my own business where I kind of became really passionate about supporting women specifically because I saw kind of this gender divide happening, especially as AI was moving further. And if you look at some of the information out there that's in the chaos machine, women are disproportionately affected by the emotional triggering dynamics in those spaces. Not to mention, I'm sure you and I will talk more about this topic, how it's affecting our well-being in a direct way and how it affects our parenting and our children. So I just became really passionate about how I could step into helping women be empowered in the space, which doesn't mean running away from it or banning it. It means learning and understanding it so that we can make conscious choices around it. So here we are.
Here we are. Very, very succinctly put. It's an amazing journey. And I think it's also just worth saying that when we open our mind and our heart to where we are, given the world, given the circumstance that we're in, or the experiences that we have at that time, it can shift beyond measure the trajectory of our life, our relationships, and I think too, just the belief in ourselves that we can do something that we never even saw coming.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So let's talk about something that you've said before about the hidden mental load of digital life. Unpack that for us a little.
Whew. Okay. So I think most people I speak to, when you open this conversation, they connect with it immediately. There's not a human I speak to that doesn't feel a slave to their phone or doesn't know what to do as a parent about kids and their phones. So if we just start with phones, right? The advent of cell phones. So I've looked at this in so many different ways. There's a trajectory that started where I would say, I remember I got my first cell phone in like 1996. So, and it was a big deal, right? To be able to like have something with you all the time. It took getting used to. And then I remember very succinctly when texting started, and I was so uncomfortable with texting at first.
Me too.
Oh
I
my
got
gosh.
it.
Right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. In 96, I was joining, I went to college, and I didn't get my first cell phone until I went into college. And this texting, it was like, just call. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Why would you
It was
Why would
weird,
you
right? It
text?
was impersonal yet invasive at the same time. And
Yes.
so it was this big habit shift. And I remember, how some people took to it right away. And it was a thing. So the reason I bring that up is because that, you look at that wasn't that long ago. And then to where we are today, where we text more than we call. It's nobody talks anymore live without scheduling it. Have you ever had a situation where just to have a phone call, someone texts you to say, can you talk? We used to just call each other random, So I think what's gone on is there's been this trajectory of depersonalization and safety in relationship that we've tried to hide with tech more and more and more. So when we started texting more, what it does is it takes away the vulnerability of this face-to-face and having to directly receive feedback of, perceived rejection or emotional, engagement. Text even allows us to like type and erase. How many times have you had that experience? So that's just text. Now you take that next level into social media. And now in the social space, you have this widening group of friends and contacts and unknowns where you can now feel connected by commenting on anybody and everything, but they're just symbols. They're not real. And you're out of the feedback loop. So I think that we've done a couple of things. One is it's become an escape. and which is, in a way, it's offloading our emotional connection, our vulnerability, and what we're going to speak on in a second is the cognition piece. So now we have generative AI. So a lot of the psychology and sociology is now showing that, people, we choose comfort over connection at this point. And to the point, people are using a generative AI as their boyfriends, as their best friends, as their counselors. And there's some utility to having a feedback loop digital. The challenge is two things are happening when we start using AI, both even for work, even saying, I'm going to have it write this text or this email or this paper or whatever we're doing, we're taking our own creativity out of it. We're taking, because I don't know about you, when I was in college, having to sit down and write that paper and get started was the hardest part. Gathering the research, like getting that, like, where do I start? What do I do? How do I outline this? And now that's all done for us. So the more we give away, the more we give away. And then the more we feel we have to do, which is odd. So as humans, and I met someone that was in telecom in the early days, and he actually was a monk at one point. And he said, I thought I was going into the space because these cell phones were going to give us all of our lives back. We were going to be able to stay connected, but get all our work done, that we would have more free time with each other. What does humans do? We always fill the time. We just add on more. So what is happening? We're all overwhelmed. Now we're overwhelmed because constant contact, constant being marketed to, not necessarily knowing what's real, constant communication with everyone in our lives when they want us, conflict goes on. And constant expectations on ourselves and others. So I think it's so multi-layered. So the thing is, again, I don't want to villainize AI because I use it every day. And the reason I teach it is because I think the issue isn't that this tech doesn't have really great potential to support us. Is it leading us, or are we leading it? And are we strong enough and conscious enough in how we use it and choose it to, keep our creativity, our cognition, our critical thinking, and our relationships? So, and I didn't tell one story, which I always tell in my classes, which is cognitive offloading is a real thing, meaning you will notice brain fog. So, and the other thing that happens too, and again, I think it goes back to, it's not just offloading your critical thinking cognition, it's the vulnerability piece that when we go out of the online space back into the real world, we kind of go blank. We're like, wait, I've almost forgotten how to interact, or I don't know how to execute from this place because I had all this great information, but I didn't internalize it. It wasn't mine. And we don't memorize. That's not how we learn. We don't read something and it's all of a sudden in our systems. If we co-create it, we've learned it. And so we cut the learning out when we just have it given to us. And so now we can't take it into the space, or at least not without massive imposter syndrome, right? So, and there's just too much information, and we think we should embody it. We just can't. So we have to come back to trusting ourselves. And sometimes it makes it so we don't. So it's kind of this combined effect. So we have to be very careful how we do that.
Yeah. So, let's just lean into that for a second when it comes to our kids, or kids, whether they're ours or not, because in high school, even in elementary school, they're already not always leaning on their own mind to do their work. It's expected that they are using AI in some cases. And so we have this conversation in our house all the time, having a teenage daughter also. Now her school is very strict. They do a lot of work on an iPad, but they aren't allowed to use AI whatsoever. So what is your experience with helping our kids and shaping that message with them on how to delicately use this and still lean on them to lean on themselves?
Oh my gosh. And it's so much more important than we realize because of the way that kids' brains form. Again, what we're finding is children, there's two aspects. There's generative AI and there's social media. I kind of combine the both because it has to do with our relationship with our digital lives, right? In a way too. So especially for kids. So kids are getting exposed to phones before the age 5, right? They're already watching the videos while the parents are trying to eat dinner. And, it's happening. We
Yeah.
all, and again, I'm not villainizing parents. Like, that's a whole nother topic about hands-on parenting right now, and that we don't let kids do as much of their own learning and free play and all those things. And then you have tech that's constantly giving them this mirror versus them being bored and creative and doing things on their own. What we're actually finding is it's not just an issue of like cognition. That is a major issue. Their critical thinking is going lower and lower and lower in terms of problem solving. It's also about impulse control and their ability to make good decisions, and resilience is what they're finding. So because they're mirrored so many things about how they should be, and they're creating these sort of identities, then they don't learn to be themselves. And they don't know how to make decisions for themselves. It's a very interesting dynamic. And we're seeing it because that's why anxiety and depression is skyrocketing for young adults, because they just don't, they're lost in terms of how to, they didn't get to develop in that way that kind of you had to learn to like be in space and navigate relationships and crises and problems and be in physical, issues. And, in the same way, you have everything's kind of, again, you're bypassing vulnerability for comfort all the time. And as a result, when real things are happening in life, they don't have the skill sets and the strength to handle it. And they're just kind of collapsing mentally under the weight. And then what do? We medicate. And yeah.
Right. Oh, I mean, that sounds doomsday-ish almost, right? Like, let's just be honest. It sounds a little scary. So we have to be thoughtful and present. And
yes, there's things we can do. Yeah. And again, I think the challenge when I talk to parents, I notice people shut down because, I'm very passionate about this. Right. And so it can feel like I don't want to be in this like scary conversation. And, so there's 3 things that I find that is like the suggestion. One is nothing's black and white, and as parents, I'm constantly telling parents to forgive themselves, because the reality is there's a dynamic with parenting right now where somehow in our generation, we decided our children shouldn't suffer. And if they did, that was our fault and that we've done something wrong, when there's actual like part of suffering is the learning, right? That's we got to do it by going outside and free play and skinning our knees and whatever. And unfortunately, it's a whole different layer when you're talking, all this information they're getting access to that we don't even know how to track. So 1, though, we do need to forgive ourselves. 2, I think parents need to engage and like not run away from these conversations and just learn. The first step is learning. So what I always say, and this goes for your adult experience with AI, and it goes for how you're dealing with your teenagers, because it's not a black and white answer that said you can't understand what you're not aware of, and you can't, accept what you don't understand, and you can't change what you don't accept. So it's a process of learning that leads to the right decisions for your family. Now, there's really good suggestions. So 1 is don't be afraid to have hard conversations with your kids and put boundaries. I mean, that's just, you have to do that. And one thing is modeling is the second. How we use tech is how they'll use tech. And I don't know about you, I'm as guilty as the rest of having my phone on my nightstand and waking up to messages because I cross how many time zones in my work. And I realize maybe that's not even, and I don't let my kids do that. That said, they see it. And even though I can explain to them the reasons for that, they're not that good of reasons. So that's one piece. That said, another piece is parents are giving kids phones younger and younger and younger. And so kids are native to these technologies. They don't have a life without it. And a lot of parents are doing it. And again, not to speak for parents, but what I hear is like, well, they want to be able to reach their children. They want to be able to, if their kids are doing sports, there's these justifiable reasons that didn't exist in the past. That said, there are some workarounds, meaning you can, for example, Apple Watches, they can have a watch that lets them text and call without having any camera and any social apps, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
just want to have a GPS on your child and have them be able to call you and it's a wearable, that's an option. And you do not need a phone anymore to have an Apple Watch with that capacity. Again, not a perfect answer, but it's a lot better than giving
It's an
them
option.
this full device. Second, it may seem like torture to make your children wait to have a real cell phone till middle school or high school. And we did it. And yes, your kids will hate you and they
Let's
survive.
be
And
honest.
yeah. And, my children, you would have a different conversation if you interviewed them on this topic. That said,
Yeah.
it's hilarious because we got phones that we got them a phone finally when they were 13, and we got these phones. It's called TrueMe, and there's various ones of these now that allow you to have full access. They literally don't allow any social media apps on there. They can only get access to Google search if you allow it. So sometimes for
Okay.
school, they have to do research, so you can turn it on and off at will. And you
Mm-hmm.
can approve any website. You can read every text. You can set times for texting, calls, apps, web
Mm-hmm.
searches. You can limit all the time frames across any day of the week. It seems like a lot of control as a parent. That said, I basically said to my children, until you prove to me that you can use this device responsibly, this is the metric. And then slowly over time, you add more. Like you can make it so they can't even add their own contacts because they'll get spam or they'll get targeted. And,
Right.
they
Right.
so you may want to limit whether people can just contact them without approval. And, there's all these different things. So there's different things we can do as parents of across a full spectrum. But I think one of the things that we can't do is ignore it. And, and then later go, why is my kid having severe anxiety or experiencing thoughts of suicide or, and you haven't been,
Extreme.
in the mix. Yeah. Cause there's just so many sad stories right now. And that's what's horrible is like when you later, the aftermath, you hear, I had 3 people I knew last year, 1 degree removed where 17-year-olds committed suicide. Like that.
Oh,
I live in a very affluent area. Like this is not, the heartbreak, right? And it doesn't mean there's one reason for that. That said, there is common denominators in our culture around this, and it's heartbreaking. So again, I just think, it does start with us as parents to research at first to say, and to figure out what the boundaries are and to build good family habits.
Yeah,
And that's
that's
where
great advice.
You do your best. You do your best.
That's right. And offer a lot of grace to yourself because Lord knows. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's transition this to AI and as basic as what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah. Awesome. AI, it's funny, artificial intelligence. So AI algorithms are just really, commands. So they're just, programs that figure out how to do things probabilistically. Well, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
So AI by itself is a tool that then can be programmed towards what it's designed to do. So that's why when I speak about social media, social media is based on algorithms that are designed for engagement. That's what they're designed to do. They have a goal, and that goal is to figure out probabilistically, I will get that word before the end of this, what you want to see and what will emotionally trigger you into staying on the app. That's all it's designed to do. So AI, you can program it towards goals. So the same thing with generative AI, it's basically this tool that you ask it questions and it figures out to the best of its ability what you want to receive. And it has access to this massive amounts of training data. So the intelligence piece is that, in that space, an algorithm can go and access the entire internet or, the entire library of all the research articles out there. So the intelligence is really knowledge based, right? And that's why it's able to take that, package things up and put it in a format it thinks you would like to receive it in. And then it's reinforcement learning. So the more information you give it, the more that it figures out how you like stuff. Now, pros and cons to that, right, is
Yeah.
it's going to give you, again, what you think it thinks you want. So that's why, learning how to use it effectively and understanding what's a research tool versus what's, just a generative AI tool. And there's aspects where, yes, train it to speak like you and give you what you want. And other ways you want to be really specific and you want to have source material, so that it's not just making stuff up, because it will. So by nature, there's people that say, well, AI is not really intelligent in that way. It's just has a way of figuring out stuff, packaging data for you to get in the way that you want it, faster than we would do it ourselves with a higher kind of knowledge database, right? But it doesn't carry emotional understanding. It doesn't carry intuition. It's not, like currently sentient and intelligent. And so that's just a piece. So yeah, that's the
Yeah.
basics.
Even though I would say sometimes it feels emotional, right? As
Yes.
we joke in our house, I have a custom GPT that is my new best friend, Mia, that I joke about. And she has a lot of emotion in the way she talks, right? So she'll give you a compliment and you're like, oh, thank you. I needed to hear that today. So I think that can be very confusing sometimes because it's not emotional, but it makes you react emotionally. There's a difference.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this in. In fact, I just listened. So there's a podcast called Undivided Attention, and it's put on by the Center for Humane Technology. And they literally just did an interview on this exact topic. So they got together with a bunch of sociologists and psychologists. And there's one woman on there that was speaking, and she literally said, the minute your AI tells you it loves you and it uses a lot of I language with you, you've lost the game. That's literally what she said, because, here's the watch out, because I get it. Like, I have made it my personal coach also in so many ways. And it's really helped me in certain cases. Like, there's those moments in time where, I'm having my coffee and I'm starting my day and I'm overthinking something, right? And I just have to I journal a lot, but sometimes I'll just throw it in there, say, this is what's going on. And it will just give me this really grounding reflection to say, maybe you should, because it knows everything about me because of all my business stuff is in there. And it'll say, maybe you should focus on these 3 things today. And you're doing great. And this is totally normal. And maybe you just need rest or whatever it is, right? It can actually support my well-being. And that's great in a certain way. It only becomes an issue, again, depending on how much you're depending on it, and also the nature of, like, again, back to age and things like that. So as long as you're clear that the truth is it's not emotional, it's not, and it's not human, and that it's very safe for us as humans to engage with a digital dynamic that we know can't reject us. Right. So back to what's going on in society about vulnerability, and we want to choose comfort, and we're getting more and more afraid. And the reason for that too is there is massive polarization going on in our world. I don't need to speak that. And some of that is driven by algorithms too. That's the irony here, is this fear of vulnerability is also being driven by algorithms that emotionally excite us, like, back to the social space. And then we start attacking each other. And now nobody wants to kind of be in the space anymore together. We kind of want to stay safe. The most normal people don't want to fight, or don't want to be villainized, or, so I think for some, and we look at the level of, like, neurodivergence in our world, people that are already have experienced pain. We've all had trauma. We've all had social pain in our life. We've all had heartache. It's nice to have something to talk to that's safe and supportive and creates that space for us, that said, if we lean too deeply, we literally don't want to go outside anymore. We don't want to do those interactions, or we don't want to pick up the phone, or we don't want to ask for help. And, and what does that mean long term for us as a species?
Right.
When we stop connecting, and there's some of that again already happening, because the other side of this is, back to algorithms, because it's giving Jill what she wants. What Jill wants is not what Amie wants. So my AI is going to tell me something different than it tells you, even if we ask it, something really specific. So because it's going to do it based on what it knows about us. Now, social media is that on steroids, right? Because if it's designed to keep you engaged over just give you what you want, then it's going to incite anger and rage because that's higher engagement. It's been proven psychologically that people are going to forward tweets and messages that are angering to them versus things that are loving and kind. So it knows that. It doesn't care. It doesn't care what the cost is of that. So that, and again, so no two people are seeing the same thing and they're trying to argue over completely different information, and we're not even in the same room. It's like literally screaming across the country, with different newspapers. It just doesn't work. And so there's a breakdown, and the more that breakdown happens, the more we retreat, the more we just want to go to our own, tool that supports our well-being. So as much as, again, I think, and I want to talk positively about AI for a second, because I know I keep going down the rabbit hole. What I think AI is really, really good at is offloading the basics. Have it do your calendaring. Someone can book you without you going back and forth on email 4 times to find a time that works. Have it, rewrite, format an email for you that you just need a little help on wording. Do research with it. Use it for research and sourcing to give you a synthesis of all the latest research on a topic that you can really grab, right? And you can save time and then build your presentation. I mean, if you want to create visuals, something like that, that's like a presentation visual, and you're like, oh, I can describe it instead of having to like make it myself. There's certain things, like if you're not good at it, just make your job easier in that way, save yourself time. And it's so good for that. And I'm all for that. Like automate what you can and bring that extra time back into connection with others. Use not everybody is within a job that's about relational space. That said, what if AI could help us be that? And we could start being back into deep conversation about reconnecting with the mission of our companies that was originally there, or reconnecting with, bigger pictures of community health and well-being, and sharing real information of our real experience instead of kind of looking out to these algorithms to tell us what's going on in the world. I think that's also really dangerous. I always say, I had an interview earlier this week, and it's really easy to get depressed, right? When you kind of see the noise. And what I always say is like, I get to talk to amazing people every day. That's what I get to do in my life. And I choose to, and I'm lucky. And you know me, Jill, I network a lot and I don't turn down conversations, and I just get constantly inspired by everyone I meet. So, and for me, I grab that and I say, that's what the world is to me, is a whole lot of people that really want to do good things. Why am I going to believe something different than that? And it doesn't mean we don't work on the problems, but hold the goodness and hold that through what we can do together in connection. And that's where change happens. It doesn't happen out there in that digital world. That's kind of the movie that's trying to keep us all confused, like you said.
Yeah. There's about 12 topics we could unpack for and go deep. So when you said let's to give AI a positive note also, so some of the other basic things that you have found that you do use it for in your everyday life that might be surprising, or that you didn't used to use it for, what would be a couple of those things?
Yeah, I think there's the professional and the personal. So on a professional level, I'm wowed all the time, right? Meaning I'm just learning like how to create. And so the truth for me is I'm ADHD. So, and I didn't really realize how much that was impacting the way I did things, because not only my ADHD, I have ideas coming out of my head all day long. I have unwritten books all over the place. I have all these like projects, and I literally support entrepreneurs and other people's businesses and things, in addition to like the trainings and education. So for me, it's, what I've found AI does for me is it lets me do so much more to create than I ever could on my own with my attention span. So for example, I can create a landing page now, and I've, unlocked the code to do that in 15 to 20 minutes through taking AI recorded meeting notes for a real conversation, combine it with some research that I did, and then set an intention and then place that into, a Gamma app, in a pasted prompt and say, build me out a landing page. And it will do 80% of the work for me. And then I spend the other 20% bringing in what wasn't there, adding the visuals I
Mhm.
want, creating the back end buttons. I still have a lot of wires to connect. But that
Mhm.
initial lift that gets a design energy moving is like game changing for me. So,
Wow.
and I never thought I would be able to do that because, again, I
Mhm.
was, I had learned, tech along the way and how to create and connect wires and things. So that's like a big one. In addition to, on a personal note, like I said, I do use it for more mundane, like life direction sometimes. Because again,
Mhm.
I do lean into it to kind of check and balance my ideas a lot. And then it has like a lot of my brainstorms over time, and so now I
Mhm.
can just use it as a business coach, as a personal coach. So I have custom GPTs, and I also have just my personal project AI that, and I will say what is the best focus for me right now, and you can bring in your astrology, you can bring in, I mean, I've even, on a spiritual level, I've accessed the Bible and to say, because the Bible's it's a written thing, to say, hey,
Right.
I'd like a verse for this, and I mean, things like that. Again, I wouldn't have thought of in the past, but I've been opening to some of that where it's like, wait, anything that's
Yeah.
just a knowledge base that can be synthesized into a message that I need in the moment, that's gold
Mhm.
to me. And so it just can give
Yeah.
you that little boost of inspiration. So I do use it in that way. And that's kind of been my morning journey and, journal companion now to kind of set
Yeah.
tones in that way where it wasn't before. I would use other apps. I'm trying to think what else. And then like I said, just
Good.
I think the biggest thing for me is unlocking how to help others do this, to create
Mhm.
functional trainings for others that teaches them how to use multiple tools together to create. And I think it gets fun. And that's, you've been doing my course. Like, it's not just about, oh, I'm going to go on ChatGPT, ask it to do something for me. Now it's like, how do I get creative? Like, what's my goal?
Mhm.
Which applications would support it? How do I go get the research, bring it over here, see what works? And so it's kind of like you're putting puzzles together. And I love that. And I don't think that's a
Yeah.
common application of AI that people are doing. So I'm finding teaching that a lot of people's eyes are popping and they're starting to have fun and like really get open to what they can do with it to use for their well-being and their
Mhm.
work. So I think those are the biggest
Yeah.
things for me. Yeah.
I would say, I mean, just to speak for a moment about learning a couple of things from you in the AI stacking, that was a completely new concept for me. When I felt like I used it, ChatGPT, I use almost every day in a very basic format. I'm learning now and challenging nonetheless, but it has helped me organize. It's helped me be a better email writer. It's helped my tone. There are plenty of times when I've needed it to soften my tone or enhance my tone or whatever it is. But the AI stacking blew my mind. And I don't think I also realized there were so many different versions out there and that some are based on research and so build the thought of being able to build my own training material or whatever it is by using 3 or 4 different chat GP or not chat GPTs, but different GPTs. So
Mhm.
if you feel comfortable, I would love to just have your personal opinion on the ones that you use the most.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say it is a secret sauce a little bit. And as I'm sure your listeners know, there's a million AI tools. If you start getting into it, you'll get advertised like crazy just probably listening to this podcast, right? It'll be in your algorithm. That said, it can
Yeah.
be confusing. So I ChatGPT I still think is a foundational tool. I think it's kind of a go-to, right? And you get a bang for your buck in a lot of ways as a starting point. I also use Claude, which is another LLM, and Claude the benefits I see in Claude, it's really good at working with synthesizing large documents. I have done book writing, and I found Claude was a better book writing partner in the way it would like organize chapters and give narratives. And my understanding is the security is slightly better in terms of data privacy on Claude, and I would encourage research on that. Perplexity is one people get blown away by. Perplexity AI is the research AI. So what it does that it's super unique, literally, I don't even Google things anymore. It allows you to put in a statement of something you want research on, and it will just search the whole internet and bring out as many sources around the topic and give you a full synthesis of those sources. But it also literally gives you every reference. So you can go into any single one of those sources and dig deeper. And then you can refine your prompting from there. And that one, I think I love that because again, in our world of what's real and what's not, and is AI hallucinating or not, I find tapping into like real research, it matters, right? So those three are kind of my go-tos for, larger LLMs. And then Gamma is my fun one for presentations and web pages. And because again, and it's learning to use it. That said, and there's a couple other out there, but it's just my current favorite for creating those documents and things. I can create proposals, social images, and you can do all of it within like a couple prompts. It's pretty amazing. You can brand it and things like that. So that's Gamma app. AI note takers. These are basic things, but I always say if somebody's not using an AI note taker at this point, if you're doing Zoom meetings, like it saves you so much energy and optimizes efficiency. And because what I found it did was I love to take notes. I still love writing stuff down. I will miss it. And again, back to I would rather spend time connecting with you. And then what it generally does is it captures more than we realize because it gives you these really elegant summaries and bulleted action points. I'm like, oh, thank goodness it told me because I wouldn't have remembered that. Or, or maybe I missed something that I didn't want to ask for clarification on, captured it really clearly. Like this is the thing. So definitely AI note takers. I use Fathom. That's my favorite. I've used Otter in the past. And then, and now I'm leaning in. I'm kind of committed to unlocking new skills as I go. So, Midjourney is a really neat image creator, AI. There's chatbot AIs I'm exploring as well. So Zapier has chatbots. I think there's plenty of others. Synesthesia is a fun one. If you want to create like videos with avatars, you can literally just put text in and it will literally create like the visual movie of like with slides and graphics and like a AI avatar speaking, and it looks like a real human. And it's pretty cool. I mean, for little education stuff, I'm kind of at this place in my life. I don't love seeing myself on video. So it's like perfect. I can deliver some education and I can, have a front of a young person that would do it. So that's a fun one. And Opus Clip, if you're doing, or CapCut for making, Instagram little shortcut, it'll take a video that's, if you take this podcast, it'll chop it up for you in whatever amount of minutes or seconds that you want into a whole bunch of reels, and you can get captions on them automatically. You can do re-rolls. So those are just a few. And then what you're talking about stacking, I just want to mention is it's not just about having kind of your set of key tools you use. It's how do you leverage them together? And I think I mentioned it before where, I can take a Fathom meeting recording summary and make a proposal out of it. So if I'm presenting and talking to a client saying, okay, what are your needs, this and that, and it's all there in the conversation, I can just grab that, put it in Gamma, and next thing I know, it's a beautiful proposal that I just have to now make some edits. And now it has these great graphics, animations, and it's good to go in an hour. And it looks like I spent a week on it. So, I mean, that's where you can you use them together. And again, you still want to put eyes on everything. Another is, like you said, training material, right? So you ask chat, you give it its goal, and you say, I want a prompt for Claude, or I want a prompt for Perplexity to get the right research around this goal. Pull that in and then say, hey, take this research and now give me the right prompt for Claude to create the artifact of the training material that's interactive, has this colors, does these things, and it'll lay it all out for you in exactly the way Claude needs to receive to do the coding. So that's, these systems now, that's the difference. They code it for you. In the past, you needed programmers and things to develop collateral. Now it's it just does that. And Lovable is another one that builds out full blown websites now. And some of the things people are doing with it is off the charts. So yeah, those are some key ones. But again, there's plenty more. And I do encourage people to play with the toys. Don't get too caught up because you can pay for 1,000 apps that you won't use. So start with just the couple key ones and then go from there. Yeah.
Yeah. So using it to be creative, but also protecting your cognitive ability at the same time. Don't let it steal your creative thinking. Always lean on your own ability to manage it and not let it manage you.
Yeah. And one tip on that, and that it's a basic one when you're prompting. So learning to prompt is key. And when you're prompting, it's useful to make sure you're asking your AI to ask you questions. So instead of just saying, do this thing for me, saying, take on this role and collaborate with me on creating this and ask me clarifying questions. Now you're engaging creatively and you're refining and refining. Not only will you get a better output, it'll kind of force you into more like really intention on what you're doing and what you're wanting to create and how you're doing it. So you can really begin to like be in the conversation. So when the creation happens, you felt like you wrote it almost. It just kind of like puts the piece together. So that's just one tip is like, make sure it doesn't just do it. Make sure it asks you and that there's a lot of, ways it's pulling you into the conversation. And it's just a basic way to not just bypass essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm learning that too, as I'm playing with it, that piece of engagement and protection. So that's kind of like as a final question, just with everything we've talked about and getting creative and digging in, but while also creating boundaries. So any final thoughts on how to protect your energy and set those digital boundaries, but also be creative and enjoy it?
Yeah, there's like, it's funny. There's 3 terms like I like. One is digital hygiene, digital well-being, and then abstinence. So,
I love it.
So your digital hygiene is sort of how you stay clean within the digital world, right? So that means, it sounds strange. Don't let your desktop overwhelm you. Clean up your email, clean up how many tabs you have open, focus your energy and your work with goals that you set for the day. These technologies are fun and we have so many notifications and emails coming in or texts coming in or WhatsApps coming in, whatever it is. I mentioned being ADHD. I wasn't this bad before I was 50 and using all of this. I know that it's a combined situation.
Yeah.
So sort of managing yourself, same thing with your apps on your phone. Like how many can you get rid of? How many apps have you downloaded that you actually don't use? I guarantee almost everyone has like 20 at least, right?
I know. I'm thinking like 2 pages on my iPhone.
And you have to go find the one you want, right? Or that one time you go eat a Panera that you got the app, right? Because, whatever it is. So, anyway, yes, delete your, so clean up your hygiene. Do have your security intact. Do your 2-factor authentication. Make it take the extra time. It's good. So that's your digital hygiene. Digital well-being is time management, right? So that's where you're really, being conscious about how you're using it and really focusing on your why and notice your energy. So I think one of the biggest challenges, and I think we're a little more present with this as having remembered what it was like not to have these tools, to notice when we're getting pulled down the rabbit hole. There's a very big difference than, going on Instagram and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, an hour went by and I just need, and you thought you were taking a break, but you're actually more tired and a little bit more anxious or depressed feeling afterwards. You're like, whoa, and you just lost an hour. So it doesn't feel good, right? You have to notice how you feel after that happens because even if you used it to connect with friends and there's nothing wrong with that, but try to put time limits. Set a little alarm for 15 minutes on your phone and have it, because it'll just shock you back into reality and go, okay, yeah, I need to go do something else. So manage that, turn off your notifications in general. So don't have it bannering or even having all the numbers on the apps, go in intentionally. Unless, I mean, for anything really, just be intentional about you choosing when you dive in, not getting the slot machine energy, right?
Yes.
And then the last piece is remember the world. Remember there's a world out there. Go outside.
Right.
Go outside, take a walk, leave your phone. How does it feel for you if you literally went, took a half hour walk and didn't take your phone with you?
Oh, it feels
It,
great.
it feels great and it feels scary. I mean, I know,
Yeah.
there's a feeling to it. That's the point is like, if you feel that way, if you notice a withdrawal feeling of like that, we've been programmed at this point to feel something bad will happen if we don't have our phones with us 24/7.
Yeah.
If you're a parent, you know that's true. You are
Yeah.
like, if something bad happened in that 30 minutes, you would never forgive yourself,
Yeah.
right?
I know. Hello, Life 360. I know. Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, I'm
Oh.
a yoga teacher. I didn't mention that in my background that said, I laugh because I see people stopping middle of the class to get on their phone.
Oh,
And
good God.
and some studios don't allow them and things. And, and it's just hilarious. It's like you just that 1 hour, which is meant to reconnect with your body. Some people are really great at it. So this isn't like in everyone. I'm saying it's getting worse and worse though. And
Yeah.
so check yourself, and
Yeah.
if you notice yourself doing that, ask yourself some questions and just say, really, like, is this true? And what if something did happen? Problems
Mhm.
often solve themselves. They
Mhm.
really do. And, one thing
How
I do on the side, I coach women. I've done a lot of career coaching for women and men too. But women we've been taught to respond. We've been taught to give, right? And we think that if something's being asked of us, we have to show up to it right away. There's
Mhm.
just this nurture, like that's what we do, right? We're caretakers. And so women that get burnt out in their careers,
Yeah.
often it's because they feel they're getting asked too much and it's just too much and they can't handle it. Plus, be parents, plus, look how we look or supposed to look and do all the things, that we
Right.
do to hold emotional labor. So I always tell women, say, the only way you have to teach your own company to not use your time that way. It's on
Yes.
you to not respond as fast and just
Healthy boundaries.
test it,
Yes.
like test it. And they're like, I can't do that. And like, I said, trust me, it's amazing. Not to go down this path in a long story, just when I left corporate and I decided to leave, it was a 6-month path. And I said to myself, how am I going to get through the next 6 months? You get senioritis because you're going to escape. And I said, okay, what are the things that are the most impactful that I do every day? And I knew in that moment it was, supporting my team. 100% it was about supporting my team. But then, of course, there's all those other pulls on your energy you're supposed to do, right? I said, I'm only going to do that. And that's what I know impacts. I'm going to focus on that for 6 months and I'm not really going to stress over the rest. And I stopped responding to a lot of things, or at least I did it when I wanted, sometimes days later. And I will tell you, people respected my time 10 times more than they had in my entire career. People would finally get me on the phone. They'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I know you're so busy. Thank you for your time. They were so more appreciative.
Wow.
I was kind of chuckling. That said, it's real. In my point. So how you value yourself and your time is how other people will value it. And that goes the same for your digital world. It's like, don't let your digital world own you. It's what you were saying, Jill. Like, it's like, it will ask for your attention all the time. That's what notifications are. It will constantly hammer you for you to give back to it. And this is why I focus on women, because again, we're there. It's like, we have to know, we have to show up for our kids. We have to show up to the school. We have to show up to our spouses, to our work. Like, no, like, take back your power and understand, like, value yourself, and you deserve to do that. And don't let, when you use these tools, use them to support you. They are there to support you, and they're not there to use you and to make you do more. So that's the biggest, get outside, go in the sun, breathe, take some deep breaths,
Yes.
go to the yoga
Ground.
class and leave your phone in your bag.
Yes. I love it. I love it. All right. Let's wrap up, Amie, with 3 quick questions that I am dying to know your answers to. So, number 1, what would be one thing that you do regularly to support your well-being?
My first hour of my day is sacred. sacred, sacred, sacred time. I'll wake up an hour early, no matter what I have to do to have that hour to have my
Mhm.
coffee and be with that transition into what is, whatever that
Yeah.
is for me, whether I'm praying, I'm journaling, I'm just sipping my coffee and sitting with my dog, whether I go out and listen to the birds, like it, without that, I don't set my day up right to be present. And I
Mhm.
think that's my goal is in life. If you lose your presence, you kind of lose your connection and your life. And next thing you
Mhm.
know, it's gone. So yeah, that 1 hour is it.
I
Everything
love
else
it.
unfolds from there.
I love it. So, what about a mindset shift that you've experienced that has made a huge difference in your life?
Yeah, well, this is recent. I'm just noticing this right now, and it's really interesting. Okay, women in midlife, right? So the
Here we are.
fifty-year-old perimenopause journey. I've been cursing it, and that said something's shifting, and I just landed on it. And I've kind of read about it since, which is something happens. I realize I have no desire to people please anymore. Like I didn't realize there was a
That's
connection
awesome.
between going through this like change and this moving from what we were saying about this people pleasing responsive society wants women to hold the emotional labor and give and always be liked
Mhm.
and all those things, and suddenly
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what, I just want to be authentically myself. That's
Me.
it. And I'm going to hold boundaries around that. And it almost is like an impossibility for me to do otherwise. I always wanted that in the past, but there was always those like pulls of this conditioning. And all of a sudden, I think we have this choice at midlife or through this hormonal shift, whatever it is that's facilitating it energetically or spiritually, that just puts us into this more like place of wisdom where we're like, no, we have it. We've done the work.
Mhm.
We're here and all we have to do is be us. And
Right.
that's what I want women
Own
to
it.
get to. Like if we just got to that and just were truly authentic, like I think we would
Mhm.
all the whole world would be a better place. It's just, we wouldn't have to lean in towards this conditioning. And so I just feel that shift
Yeah.
happening. And it's sort of now a choice that's leading to courageous boundary setting. And it's
I
not
love it.
easy. It's not always easy. And I'm, finding that other mindset shift that goes with that is get support. Like talk to people and be authentic that you are doing these boundaries
Yeah.
and that it's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard.
It is
And
hard.
we need to support each other.
I just really quick, it makes me think about actually, I was watching a podcast and it was a gal who was talking about communication. And in her midlife, she's realized that as she is building this community or has built this community of friends and people around her, she will not be friends with someone who is not authentically themselves. If you can't have an open conversation with that person because they don't want to hear truth or they just want to tell you everything's going to be okay all the time and they don't
Yes.
go into the real life stuff, or if you share perspective with that person that this, as your friend, I love you and I just want to share what I'm seeing, and they don't receive that well, or they don't want to receive it, or they mirror that you're wrong. You're not, that's not how it is. She's like, I don't have time. I don't have time. It is about living into my authenticity. And I expect my friends to also be that. And I'm not going to waste time with people who aren't showing up that way. And to your point, I just found that like a deep breath moment, like, no shit. Isn't that something that we should all be saying? Like, let's
Yeah.
be authentic,
Yeah, it's
100%
that
and not the
statement like
real.
closeness over comfort. It's not always comfortable and it's real. And that's what we need.
Hello.
And that's the difference
Yeah.
between this human experience and that digital experience. That digital experience is what we
Mm.
want to show the world, that's this, I've got it figured out, or I'm doing this thing, or I'm happy, or whatever. all of us are struggling. All of us. That's the one thing we all share. Like, we may have different struggles, and we can support each other in the contrast of those struggles. And we still can admit we're struggling, and that it's not a contest, it's reality. And if we don't show up to each other, and we want to act like that's not real, we can't even receive, that honest conversation, then what are we doing? What are we doing?
Right.
What's the point? Yeah.
Right. It's time to unite. That's what I know. Yes. Okay. Last question. So if you could tell our listeners and the ladies listening anything, what would that be?
Well, as it relates to AI, like, get in the game. And no matter, even though I know I said a whole lot of things that were scary, get in the game. Go to Center for Humane Technology. There's tons of tools there to look for parents, for teens even, and to get educated. Watch The Social Dilemma, watch the other documentaries. Just start using generative AI, take a class. It's just worth you taking your power to know that this is not going away, and it's having a massive effect on the future of the world and our children and ourselves and our everything we think of each other and, our self-esteem. So just get in the game and get support. I'm here, I'm running courses. Like, there's others out there, and get support, just get support. You don't need to do anything alone. And that's my other message. Don't do anything alone. Like,
love it.
We all need each other. That's the bottom line. I don't want to do anything alone. I know that.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Well, then that leads me to telling people where they can find you. Tell our listeners how they can connect.
So, LinkedIn's always a great place, just Amie Rafter. I have a website, hbirdco.com. Hummingbird is my little fluttering around spirit animal. And then, I do have HBird social media sites. I don't participate a lot in personal social media. As you might imagine, I don't enjoy it that much. That said, you can try to find me there. Or email me, amy@hbirdco.com. And it's just any way you can. Just look up my name and you'll probably find me somewhere. But I'd love to connect.
And you spell Amie, A-M-I-E. So it's
A-M-I-E. Yes. Yeah. Thanks to my parents. So.
Yeah. Well, we can always go there about names and what on God's green earth they were thinking. But yeah.
That's another podcast. I just
had this conversation with my mom. I know. Yes. Oh, Amie, this was such a lovely conversation and needed, and loved it so much.
Yeah, thank you for what you're doing, Jill. I love everything you're offering and this full spectrum of these conversations of what well-being is, from financial and digital to, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. It's all one thing. And we can't lean one way and not another, because it is connected to this broader fabric of what society's made of. And health, we need health. We need our communities to get healthy. So I love it. Thank you for the empowerment that you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because it is a holistic approach. And this is a perfect example of a conversation where you would not put AI, boundaries, emotional wellness in the same sentence. But as we're here to tell you, it is all interconnected. And if we don't place an importance on that harmony and balance, we will find ourselves very, very out of balance. And it's hard to get back if you stray too far.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it was so fun.